Fred C. Briner of St. Louis, but a native of Highland, took movies of the Centennial parades on Saturday and Sunday. Then in later years, donated these 16-millimeter movies, which follow here, to the Lasser Memorial Library. In order to preserve the film for future generations, the Highland Public School transferred the fading and brittle tape to videotape. We are now adding narration to that silent film so that this and future generations will have some idea who is on the film and what the Centennial was all about.
A highlight of the Centennial was the 100-year history written by Pat Spencer, editor of the Highland News Leader, and the souvenir program, you see it right, that listed all members of the pageant and all the people who donated at least $1 to become a member of the Highland Centennial Association. Clarence H. Stoker, the mayor of Highland at the time, was president of the association. Pat Spencer was vice president. And here's Pat walking up the steps of the post office and going in. Stop for a minute for the camera. Back down the steps. And joined on the left by Tony Winter, postmaster, who also served as treasurer of the Centennial. There's Tony greeting, looks like Marvel Schwab in front of the post office. Arthur Graff served as treasurer. He isn't pictured. Here are some of the old timers around town. Here's Art, just coming out of his Kemp Pharmacy drugstore and back in and walking around the corner. Vernon Ittner was one of the directors of the Centennial. Vernon was publisher and editor of the Highland Journal, a weekly newspaper at that time. Wilbur G. Knable, better known as Raz, a director. Vic Cook, a director and one of the guiding lights. Leo Stecklin, director. Morris F. Widmer, also a director. And here's Mr. Widmer, a descendant of a Swiss family, a florist. Here's a scene around the public square. Previously, the public high school and grade school had been located there, and then it was torn down and a new fountain put up in time for the Centennial. Here's Chief of Police Elmer Winter. Here's a scene looking down Main Street. That time it was C. Kinney and Company, First National Bank, Gene Ernst Barbershop, dime store, sites down in the corner, just as it still is in 1984. Here's a scene on Broadway. That time it was Brown's Restaurant on the corner, the Western Union office next to it. Here we are out at the park where most of the festivities of the Centennial were held. There's a sideshow. Rides on the midway. Still have the Ferris wheel just as we did then. And the swings were probably the most exciting at that time. And the merry-go-round. And the little cars, not too much activity on some of those rides during the day. That looks a lot like Kenny Sudoff on the right, trying to be talked into throwing baseballs by Pickles Marty, who had a stand out there. More rides. And the Heinrich Bossard Monument at the park, dedicated in 1906 in honor of the Swiss poet who was buried in the pasture south of Highland. Here's Keith Tibbetts in the center, Farmer Mayor. Here's some souvenir wooden money that was used during the Centennial. And the swimming pool built in 1929 after the streets had been paved. It's been remodeled several times since then. The last time the Highland manufacturers put up most of the money to do the repair work. Flag throwing by Franz Hug of Lucerne, Switzerland was very popular during the Centennial. Franz was a 34-year-old postman from Lucerne, came here after gaining fame in the 1936 Olympics in Berlin as a flag thrower. He could throw the giant flags 40 feet into the air and catch them as they unfurled. Flag throwing originated in Switzerland, where it was developed by herdsmen in the Alps. After Franz's exhibition here, he went to Chicago, then on to Hollywood to make a movie short. And during the years that followed, many Highlanders, as they went to Switzerland, would stop in and call on Franz. There were 4 parades during the Centennial. This particular one was on Saturday, and you see the start of it here from down on West Broadway. Highland High School band, and here come some of the youngsters in the parade. Apparently this was a children's parade on Saturday afternoon, the theme of nursery rhymes and fairy tales. That's the Ford garage in the background. And to the left would be where Patty's Style Shop is in 1984. Here comes the Drum and Bugle Corps. Mary Luber is majorette, directed by Bert Weber-Leut. Some of you, as you watch this, may recognize yourselves from being in that 1937 Children's Parade. Here is the St. Paul Band with Lucille Luber as majorette, and on the left in the dark dress is Bert Weber-Leut, who was also director of the St. Paul Band as well as the American Legion Drum and Bugle Corps. Here are Cub Scouts. And another Drum and Bugle Corps shot. This was a long and interesting parade, just as most of them were during the Centennial. And they attracted large crowds on the streets. They marched from West Broadway all the way out to the Lindendale Park where the Centennial was being held.